It's Maria Jose Lopez, and today I'm going to make the resume from chapter 9 and 10 from the book The Apartment Next Door. So, chapter number 9 starts when Jane and Dean were going to meet somewhere in order to follow the Hoofs in their Wednesday trip that they always did and at the same hour. So, while Dean was waiting for Jane, he was kind of getting stressed because Jane didn't arrive to the place they talk about to meet. So then afterwards, some guy started talking with Dean, and it was pretty weird because that guy had Jane's voice, and that's how Dean knew that Jane was dressed as a boy. So Jane told Dean that she was dressed like a guy in order to avoid the Hoofs to suspect that she was following them in their Wednesday trip. So yeah. Then Dean and Jane were having a conversation in which Dean was telling Jane that someone saw Mr. Hoof dressed with a British uniform, and there was some kind of accident in which Mr. Hoof was splashed with some mud. So he started saying a lot of uh, German words like curses, and but still they were not for sure that it was Mr. Hoof or it was just another man. But still, that man, even if it's Mr. Hoof or if it is not, where that man was saying some German words, so he's like the enemy still. Later, Dean started suspecting that Jane is in love with Frederick Hoof. And it also mentions that Dean is in love with Jane. So clearly, Dean is kind of jealous of Frederick Hoof because, well, Jane is in love with him and that stuff. It also mentions that Jane wants to believe that Mr. Frederick he is not guilty about the murder that happened like that night that she saw that some guys were following each other, and well, at the other day it was like some guy murdered the other one, killed the other one. So yeah, she wants to believe that he's a good man, but still he is the enemy because he's a German. And while like Jane and Dean were in a gas station waiting for the Hoofs to pass through there in order to start following them and well to know where they were going and to reach their destination. So at some moment, the Hoofs car passed like really fast, and Dean and Jane started following their car. So finally, the Hoofs reached their destination, and they just went inside of a ferry boat, and as soon as they arrived, the ferry boat left immediately. So there was no chance that Dean and Jane could make it into the ferry boat to keep following them. Then in chapter number 10, it starts by Mr. Flick and Carter were having a conversation about the different stuff about that mission, the Hoofs and the Germans, the spies, all of that. And Flick suspects that Dean is in love with Jane, and Carter is suspecting that Jane is in love with Frederick. But they were kind of questioning if Jane could still do that work of finding the evidence in order to blame Frederick because, well, she is in love with him. Um, then, like, as they are missing some information, some evidence in order to capture Frederick, Carter made a plan, and while Lena Cross, that is the Hope servant, was like in the top of the building, Carter is going to like go inside of the Hoof's apartment in order to find some evidence. So as soon as he goes inside, he starts looking like everything in there, but he only finds the British uniform, and that's all. Afterwards, he starts asking different like operatives that were working with him in order to find the evidence, and some guy named Williams, I guess, told Carter that he found like different advertisements, but a piece of that advertisement was in ashes, meaning that that part was burned by some of the like one of the hoofs. Um, so uh, well, Carter takes that a piece of advertisement, same as the ashes, I think, to Mr. Flick's office, and Mr. Flick wants to believe, or he thinks that in those advertisements there is some kind of a secret message or a code about like their German missions and that stuff. Finally, like in the last part of the chapter, Dean calls Mr. Flick and told him that he was in in a doctor's office, in the doctor's office, because he was crashed by some car on purpose, and well, they want to believe that Jane was also crashed, but they don't know where Jane is because she like disappeared. She just literally vanished. So they are worried about her and their location, and that's all.